Welcome to Joyfully Unstoppable, the podcast for women who are ready to succeed without the stress. Whether you're leading a team, a classroom, a boardroom, or your own big, beautiful life, I am so glad you found us. I'm your host, Becky Hamm, executive coach, speaker, and founder of Women Lead Well. Join me each week for straight talk, practical tips, and a dash of encouragement. Hello, friend. I hope you are having a great day. I am. Yesterday morning, when I stepped outside to check on the garden, it was chilly, like 50-something degrees chilly. Fall is coming. It's supposed to be some super El Nino year. We are right where we are in Virginia, like right on the fault line of, does that mean a lot of snow or does that mean a lot of rain? It's going to be what it's going to be. We'll find out, I guess, in a few months, but I'm ready for fall. How about you? Shoot me a note. Let me know. Are you ready for spooky Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas? For me, it is my favorite time of year. The last 3 months of the year, hands down, my favorite. I love it. It's so cozy. That's not what we're talking about today. What we're going to talk about today is, for my money, no joke, and I mean this. You're going to doubt me when I tell you what we're going to talk about, but I mean this with all sincerity. This is a hard requirement for a successful organization. If you are not doing this in your organization or with your team, you are not performing at the level that you could. Why do I say that? Because systems matter. Repeatable, effective systems matter. Success is measured in inches, not miles. If you want the miles of progress, you got to work on optimizing your inches. And so the more you can do to improve performance on the regular, on the everyday, you'll be shocked at the impact that will have on your performance and mission accomplishment and success over time. So what are we talking about today? I had multiple conversations with coaching clients last week who were talking to me about underperforming team members or work that was just harder than it needed to be. It was harder than it needed to be to get to success. And okay, like maybe we have a performance issue. My first question always, maybe not the first question, the first thing I want to figure out always when coaching a client who is talking about an underperforming team member is this a matter of will or skill? Because if it's a skills gap, that's on the leader. Right? You, the supervisor, are responsible for making sure that your team has the skills and the capabilities that they need to effectively do their job. And so if a team member is lacking in a skill, great. How do we upskill them? If it's a will issue, maybe the individual knows what to do, they just don't care to do it, or they've got a bad attitude and that's making everything harder. It's making it more difficult for other people on the team to get their part of the job done because this one person is just being a pooty. Well, you can't train someone out of a lack of will. Then we have a conversation about effectively separating the individual. And those are difficult conversations to have, but at the same time, if somebody doesn't want to do the job they've been hired to do, okay, somebody else will want to do that job. And so let's move in that direction. And so when I was talking with these clients last week, asking them to try to get a sense of, is this a skill issue? Is this a will issue? One of the questions that I always ask is, okay, so they underperformed on X. Like they missed very obvious steps that they should have known to be doing related to a particular responsibility. Well, walk me through your SOP. Like, how is it that they do this job, this particular task? Every single time the individuals I was coaching stared at me and you could hear the crickets. They didn't have SOPs in place, standard operating procedures. They had not routinized the tasks and responsibilities requirements of the position that the individual was underperforming in. And now don't tune me out. I know you're going to hear SOP and you're going to think boring. And that's the whole point. We want SOPs to be boring because we want to make doing certain tasks as easy as possible. And I'm going to argue it is even more important today than at any point in our working lives. And a lot of us have been around for a while. And what is important is those individuals I was coaching last week who didn't have SOPs, who were all tied up in knots and frustrated because their employees were underperforming, they're not new. They've got decades of experience in leadership roles, management and executive level, They know how to lead. They know what it means to run an effective organization or part of an organization. And so the fact that they didn't have SOPs, and then we will talk about this in the podcast too, like what goes into a good SOP, how do you build one for your team, for the different tasks and responsibilities? Like they didn't know how to do it. So that is what we are talking about today, y'all. We are going to get your SOPs in place so that your team can just focus on execution. Why is this more important today than at any point in any of our working lives? Because the labor market is a train wreck right now. Organizations across industries have downsized over the last, 24 months? But they have cut the number of people doing work, but they have not reduced the workload. They haven't shrunk their missions. They haven't reduced their output. You just have fewer people doing more work. At the same time that the work that's being done is more complex. And part of that has to do with changes in technology and innovation, which ultimately is supposed to make work more efficient and effective. But learning new systems and the data requirements and the mental processing to learn it makes over the short term, and here we're talking like the next several years, short term in the long term sense, makes it more complex and difficult. So individuals' mental load is through the roof because they're doing more work than they've ever done before. That work is more complex, probably depending on your industry. You've got reporting requirements for regulatory or statutory requirements. That has become more complex. All of the reporting requirements have become more challenging and more that needs to be documented to remain in compliance. That's just on the work side. And now we've got team members. Maybe a partner is sick. Maybe a kid is struggling in school. Maybe a parent needs some help as they get older. Maybe their partner is unemployed as part of the downsizing, or they are afraid that they're going to lose their job as part of the downsizing. All of that personal stress is heightened today. You're afraid to feed your kid blueberries, right? All of that is crowding out the part of the brain that is available to do work on behalf of the organization. And so when somebody is forced to go back into their brain file to figure out how to do a task or fulfill a responsibility or make progress on a project because it hasn't been documented and written down anywhere, well, you are just a whole lot more likely to have errors, to have it not go the way you want it to go, to not successfully achieve the outcome. That's where SOPs come in. And that's why I say they're magic and why I say they're an absolute hard requirement today. And here, let me also say this before we dive into what is an SOP, how do you build one? If you don't want to call it standard operating procedure or SOP because that really does make people's eyes roll back in their head, fine, I don't care. Call it a task overview. Call it a cheat sheet. Call it whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. Call it Sylvia. Who cares? Just do the thing. Okay. And so when you develop an SOP, what needs to be included in it to make it useful? I hope by this point I've sold you on the value of SOPs. And now you're saying, well, okay, so I want to build these, but how do I do it? I'm going to say that you want SOPs for every routine, repeatable task, every project, and every requirement. So if you have a reporting requirement or there's a hard requirement that you have to produce repeatably, then you want a standard operating procedure. Build these in some sort of a shared repository. Maybe it's a OneDrive if you're on Microsoft, a Google Drive if you're on Google, or a SharePoint, wherever, but somewhere that people can have access to them. Step 1, give it a super obvious title. In a previous role, I oversaw our board. And so we had SOPs on a board meeting. We had an SOP for the board nomination process for how we'd identify, recruit them, and then onboard them. We had SOPs. I ran a university, so we had SOPs for all of the academics, curriculum review and accreditation requirements and faculty promotion. And we didn't have tenure at our organization, so that wasn't, but we would have had an SOP for that at a traditional university. So anything that is repeatable, that could be held in someone's institutional memory, We want to codify it in an SOP. And that is another reason why SOPs are so important. With all the flux in the labor market, we have lost so much institutional memory because people are getting laid off. People who knew how to do the job and could run it just from the brain, right? They're gone. New people are coming in and they've got to reinvent the wheel. Or your husband does get sick, or your kid gets sick, or you get sick and you're called out. Somebody needs to step in to pick up the work for you. That SOP allows them to do that. So step number 1, give it a stupid, obvious title so nobody can misunderstand it. The next thing on the SOP, and I'm going to include a template. You can do this just in your own on a Google Doc or whatever, document it wherever you want. But I'll create a template and you can just be a link in the show notes because it ain't actually hard. After the title, you want a 1 to 2 sentence description of the task. So what is it and why do we do it? Like, what's the importance of it? Like the WIFM for the person who's going to be doing the task. It's not quite a WIFM. The WIFO, what's in it for the organization? So title, 1 to 2 sentences. What is the task, project, requirement, and why do we do it? What's the significance or value or importance of it? Underneath that, you want to list any hard requirements related to the task. It could be a project, it could be whatever, but I'm just going to say task from now on. And so maybe you've got statutory requirements, maybe you've got regulatory requirements, wherever, maybe you've got industry expectations, wherever that's coming from, you want to list them with a descriptive title. This is the name of the document and what the requirement is, and then you just hyperlink to the source document. Easy peasy. All somebody's got to do, they see the requirement, they see the quick description of like what is required, right? What do we have to do related to this task because of this document? They click the link and they can see the source document if they want it for reference. So title, 1 to 2 sentence description with the why we do it. Any of the requirements documents that guide how you do the task. And then you just lay out steps 1 through N of how to do the task. Step number 1, look at last year's report and, helpfully include a link to the last year's submission. Step number 2, reach out to so-and-so and so-and-so. You can include names as well as positions in case there's turnover in order to get blah information, whatever. Whatever the steps of completing the task, you just list them out. 1 all the way down to the last step, task is complete and done. Now, there are 2 ways to do this. I'm going to tell you how I like it done, but you could be different, right? What I would say is build your template or download the template I'm going to provide, take it to your team, figure out what works best for your team, and then just make this a standard practice across your section or your organization. I like it where the steps are all listed out, and then below the how to do the task is the section with timelines. So you've got the step 1, do this, step 2, do this, step 3, do this, step 4. You can say if the deadline is a standing deadline, let's say you've got a reporting requirement that is due every year on June 15th, then you would say this is due June 15th annually. Step 1 could be T minus 90, so 90 days before June 15th. T minus 60, T minus 30, so as you're walking through the steps, you're getting closer to the deadline. And then ideally, you want to build in a little buffer. So submit the report or complete the task, whatever it would be, is T minus 7, T minus 5, however you want to do it. So you're not submitting it on the deadline, right? Because let's get out of frantic scramble mode and let's just get to routine action mode because this is a routine task. It shouldn't be dramatic, right? Right. I like doing that in the how-to section, the 1 to N, step 1, step 2, step 3. And I like underneath that having key dates and timeline so that I can at a glance look to see what is the deadline for this? And then what are the milestones to complete the deadline? Because you could have fewer actual milestones than you have steps in the task. So I just like to see it all clean in one place, separate from the step-by-step guide of how to do the task. But again, take it to your team, see what works best for your team. Maybe you combine them. I like it broken up. After the how-to, and then the timeline, which walks you through these are the deadlines, these are the milestones, and the time hacks to meet the milestones relative to the deadline. Then you have points of contact. And here again, name of the person who is doing the job right now, their title, because they might change, phone number, email, and how they're involved in the process, right? What is their relationship to the task or reporting requirement, project, whatever. So that even if somebody changes, you at least know the position. You've got a phone number that probably tracks with the position more than the person. The email is not going to work if the person leaves, but you're going to know why you want to contact them or why they are important for you to complete the responsibility, whatever it is, the task. I build those out with my team, and then we just have an annual review. And if you don't want to review them all at once, maybe you go section by section. So each quarter, you're reviewing about 25% of all of the SOPs. And then as new responsibilities come on, or new tasks come on, or new things that you would want SOPs for, onesies and twosies, you can build a new one, and then they just get reviewed on that same cycle of whenever that section is up for review. When you build these, you're going to recognize a few things. One, you've probably got some gaps in your procedures, right? You probably have some Band-Aids in place about how to get some of these routine actions done, and you've probably been dropping a few balls. Okay, this happens. This is life. This is why we document it, so that we can then address that. You will likely also see that you have some individuals by name who are carrying a whole lot more weight than others. Because now that you've actually documented their workload and what they're doing, you can see how much more they're accomplishing than some of their peers. That becomes really important when you move into a performance evaluation season and any kind of monetary or time off awards that might be attached to performance. So again, it just helps you build a more credible case for rewarding your hard chargers and maybe documenting a weak performance for some other members of your team. You will also find out, maybe the first time you do it, but certainly once you start reviewing it annually, you will identify opportunities for process improvement. I already mentioned you're going to find some gaps, some things that you haven't been doing that you know that you should. But you might also, once you start reviewing them and intentionally thinking through, how is this project or task, how are we doing this? How could we do it more efficiently or more effectively? Now that we know the outcome we're driving for, that's that first couple of sentences, are there marginal improvements, little tweaks that we can make in order to better achieve this goal in a way that is easier for the individual who is doing the work? Or is there a wholesale review for how we ought to be doing this to meeting this objective that would be a fundamental change for how we accomplish the task or the project or the reporting requirement? All of that's possible once you get intentional about looking at the work that you're doing. But when you're just in rinse and repeat, and when you are working off of institutional memory, or people just fumbling through figuring it out at the last minute because they got too much on their plate and they weren't tracking that the deadline was coming up because they've got too much on their plate, and then they are crashing on something that is a routine, repeatable task. All of the good to come from having the SOPs. So that is what I would say. Build them. Not you, the individual. No. You create the template, socialize the template with your team, and then have the individual who was responsible for accomplishing the task, have them build the SOP. And if it is a task that is requiring input or feedback or approval from somebody else, once the draft of the SOP is in place, send it to everybody on the POC, the points of contact line, anybody who has any input into the creation or review process, and get their input on the SOP. Not for them to pull it apart and spend 2 years on it, but for them to take a look and say, yeah, that looks right. Or, hey, you forgot something. Or what about blah, right? Or, you know what? We don't really need this here. Pull this out. That's the best kind, right? Take responsibility away. Once you've got it, then again, figure out, depending on how much you're responsible for within your part of the organization, an annual review cycle that doesn't have you reviewing 50 SOPs at once, because that's not fun, right? Okay, that's it. That's the episode. Get your SOPs in place, because I guarantee your life will be better if you do. And if anyone on your team doesn't want to do it, have them reach out to me. And I'm happy to talk about the importance of SOPs and the value, the return on investment to them, the WIFM, the what's in it for me, for them as individuals to have these SOPs in place. And again, there will be a download. We are just trading. You give me your email, I give you the template. If you don't want to give me your email, no heartburn. It's your life, it's your email. You can create the template on the basis of what we talked about today on the episode. And I would say final plug, because we're here and it's my podcast. This is the kind of thing that we do inside the Women's Executive Leadership Lab. Part of it, through our group coaching, is really getting into some of the gendered bias that is existing in senior leadership roles for women today. So part of it is the community that is built when really amazing women come together to support each other. It's awesome. I love our group coaching calls. And part of it is brass tacks. How do I more effectively manage at a senior level while I have greater bandwidth and less day-to-day touch points with my teams, right? I will have maybe touch points with my direct reports, but my direct reports have direct reports, and sometimes they have direct reports, right? And so my ability to touch the entire organization or part of the organization is less at the executive level than it is when you're in lower level leadership. And so things like building SOPs and getting clear on what they are, what we use them for, and how to use them, how to leverage them to improve performance, vital, critical. And again, these are senior leaders who have been doing it for a while. They didn't have SOPs in place. Maybe you don't have your SOPs in place. Come inside the Women's Executive Leadership Lab. We will get you squared away for effective executive leadership. All right. That is the conversation today. If this episode spoke to you, I would love for you to share it with a friend. We need more women leading from alignment, not adrenaline. Repeatable routine tasks should not be dramatic. And if you haven't already, please make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss next week's drop. Really does help a little podcast like mine find its way into other women's ears who would enjoy it. Remember, joyful, sustainable, and authentic leadership is possible, and you deserve to enjoy every single minute of it. Until next time, I'm Becky Hamm, and this is Joyfully Unstoppable.